again, and welcome everyone to 𝐶�XCY, the show where we dig deep into customer experience, ratings, and reviews to learn what industries are doing to highlight what's going well and to fix what's not going well. All of our data is brought to us by our friends at Cluetrack that are able to look at tens of thousands of reviews and dig deep into what the trends are, what's driving customer satisfaction and customer irritation. Every episode, we focus on a different industry. And the idea is to bring you some details about an industry that you might not be familiar with, but also to take out the takeaways that can apply to any industry. So you may not be in today's industry. That's okay. Keep watching. I promise you there will be learnings that will apply to you and your job. As always, I am joined by an impressive guest. And today I am very excited to welcome the Vice President of Global Sales Capability for Nutrabolt. His name is Hagen Panton. Welcome, Hagen. How are you today?
Thanks, Dan. I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me on. It's been a crazy weekend starting off the week right. So I hope you're doing well as well.
Fantastic. Well, I've been excited for this conversation because this is an industry that I am not hugely familiar with, but I know, just like our viewers, I'm going to be very familiar with it as soon as we're done talking to you. Of course, that industry is energy drinks, and Nutrabolt is an important player in there. Tell us about you and about the company.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I have a pretty cool story. I was one of those guys. I started taking supplements to lose weight between 7th and 8th grade, kind of pivotal time in any young man's life. And then I started working at GNC in college, and I was like, man, this is just so great. I love it. I can help people. I can share my story of how I lost weight and became a healthier person. And then I went to lunch one day with my boss, and I had a list of all the reasons he needed to pay me a lot more money. And he kind of laughed and said, man, why don't you go buy your own store so you know what it's like to deal with an employee like you? And I took what he said to heart. I was like, what a great idea. A few cash advances later, and my outstanding reputation with GNC, they awarded me a store in Palm Bay, Florida. So I left UCF and went down to Palm Bay, Florida, and opened my first store. Classic American story. I just stood there and worked every single day, 9 to 9. And then after 10 years behind the register, I started doing some consulting, a little bit of radio here and there. And I met this group of guys out from Bryan College Station with this brand called 𝐄𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐬, 𝐶ELLUCOR. Kind of sounds like a phone company. And the CEO said, man, we'd love to have you out here. And I'm like, I'm not going from Florida to Bryan College Station, but thanks for asking. And eventually he called me one day and said, we're going to launch this product called C4, Explosive Energy. And I said, all right, I'm 35. Let's get the midlife crisis out of the way now. I packed my car. I drove to Texas, and that was almost 11 years ago. And the rest is history. So Nutrabolt is our parent company. 𝐄𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐬 is the brand, like Nike would be. And then C4 is like the Jordan. It's the sub-brand out of the 𝐄𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐬 brand, and Nutrabolt being the parent company. So it's been a wild ride all around the world. Sold in 110 countries. I've been to quite a few of them.
That's awesome. And I love that you've enjoyed the ride along the way, which is so important. So that's great. I'm really excited to dig in deep with you on the energy drink industry. So why don't we get started? Cluetrack took a look at tens of thousands of ratings and reviews online between June 2020 and June 2022. So that's the data set that we're going to be looking at, 2 full years worth of data in the energy drinks industry. I want to start by just looking at the growth of the industry, which again, I'm sure you know and have been a part of. What we've seen over the years in the United States is a huge growth in energy drink sales over the last 5 or so years at least. But also we're seeing, therefore, an increase in the number of online reviews, which is great because it adds to our data set. And we're going to be looking at the summary of almost 32,000 reviews over the last 2 years. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a quiz for you. And don't worry, there's no wrong answers here, Hagen. We're just going to have a little bit of fun. We have listed 6 potential areas of concern in the industry. So these are trends that have popped up somewhere in the data. And what we're interested in knowing is these are in alphabetical order, so as not to get you to pick one or the other. But if you could pick the top two areas that you think are driving customers, that are causing the most consternation for customers in this industry, where would you go immediately? What would your brain go to?
What drives purchase?
No, what is drive? This is in reviews, we're talking about areas of concern. So these are things that would cause a negative customer experience. We're going to get to the positive later, but these are areas of concern for customers. So things that might be bothering them about drinks that they're purchasing in this industry.
Yeah, knowing that it was 20 to 22. Also, thank you for telling us that. I would say unavailability was a big issue during 20 to 22. Also, chemicals and additives as we went through the COVID years. People were very concerned about diabetes and being more high risk to perish from COVID. So I'm going to go with unavailability and additives and yucky stuff.
Well, Hagen, this is exactly why we brought you on the show. This is not scripted, folks. Hagen has not seen these slides before, but wouldn't you know it, the top two things, the top two concerns from people were chemicals and additives and unavailability. And actually, you even had them in the right order. Unavailability was number one. Now, let's take a little bit deeper dive into this. And this is what I love so much about Clutrex technology is that we can keep digging deeper and deeper to learn even more. So as you pointed out, especially in the last 2 years, unavailability has become a significant trend. Not a huge surprise there than in the second half of 2020, right as we were kind of in the worst of the pandemic. You can see that that's where it really started. And then obviously since then, there's been supply chain issues in almost every industry. But Hagen, can you talk a little bit about what's been going on specifically in the energy drinks space? Because you knew immediately that this was going to be the top concern.
And that could have went completely the other way, I guess completely wrong. So too bad I didn't buy that lotto ticket on Saturday. Look, I mean, what happened was it was unavailability, but also a lot of convenience stores were closed. The big box retailers, we all know who they are. They went through pantry loading, right? When people were there trying to buy their toilet paper, they were also trying to buy their favorite energy drink. And we all remember that no one was driving. Like you could get on the road. No one was driving to convenience stores. Nobody was driving to work. So all those patterns, were broken. So the only place you could buy it really was the large box retailers. So, and a lot of brands, were not available in them. I know the big red one, they ran out of cans, they ran out of aluminum. And at the same time, people started drinking a lot more alcohol. So a lot of those cans were going to brands like White Claw that just smashed it through COVID. And so you had this lack of cans. There was also some natural disasters that caused various plants to shut down there in that time. But distribution as a whole just became wrecked. And it was really, really hard, for the various distribution teams, whether it's Budweiser, Coke, Pepsi, to also keep people employed to deliver those drinks to the store. Because what happened was a lot of those brands, they cut back on people because they weren't making their convenience store routes. And also what boomed during that time was Amazon. So you had all these people going, hey, okay, I'll go be an Amazon driver. And so delivery, Amazon drivers, just that all blew up. So it was all the way from can shortages, the distribution disruptions, at the city, county level, and it just all the way around. Consumers couldn't get, basic things like toilet paper. So sometimes they couldn't get energy drinks. I remember post-pandemic even going into Speedway stores in Indiana in a local manufacturing facility for one of the biggest brands out there had shut down due to a tornado. And you go in Speedway and just, there's 12 doors of drinks and there'd be like 3 doors that had drinks in them. It was absolutely crazy. And there's just nothing you could do. There wasn't people to drive the trucks. There wasn't product. There wasn't cans. That was it.
So how does a company like yours address that to both the distributor or or I guess I would call it the retailer, the people that you're selling the drinks to, but also, do you have any connection to the end consumer to be able to talk to people and say, hey, this is what's going on. Here's when you can expect it back in your favorite grocery store, etc. I imagine that's a little bit difficult to do, but maybe with social media and other channels, you guys have some ability. Anything you can tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, we drove traffic to Amazon, of course, and also our direct to consumer platform. But, in that, shipping cost accelerated significantly. So for me to ship a powder doesn't cost that much. To ship 2 heavy cases, you have to have the right box. It costs twice as much. It's almost impossible to be profitable. So, we did lean into Amazon. Now our Amazon ratings are great. We're one of the top energy brands on Amazon. So we really had to lean into that strategy. And luckily for us, we actually accelerated growth during COVID. We were in stock. Our partners were very good. We were kind of the new brand that had had enough supply on hand, and we worked with our distributors. But there was a period of time where a lot of energy brands use beer distributors to deliver our product, and they weren't going to stores that didn't sell alcohol. And then there's still a lot of places in the country that didn't sell alcohol. So they're like, sorry, I've got to go to the Big Blue store and drop my pallet of White Claw there. I don't have time to go drop off 4 or 8 cases of C4 or any other leading energy drink. So,
Yeah.
we did work with them, but no matter what, it was just a tough time for everybody. We did not run out of supply, which we were all very, very proud of. On our powder side of the business, we did. We were giving those same big box retailers, pretty low fill rates for a while, which affected our listings at Sam's Club and other places that we had a very strong business with, but we just couldn't fulfill the powder. But beverage, we had it.
Gotcha.
So before we move on, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our friends at 𝐄𝐲𝐢𝐬𝐬. 𝐄𝐲𝐢𝐬𝐬 is a customer experience analytics platform that helps brands understand why their customer experience drops. This helps them reduce churn and increase profitability.
Let's also get quickly to the second piece, which, as you pointed out, was chemicals and additives. Now, for this one, when we dig a little bit deeper, it actually becomes very clear that it's really all about artificial sweeteners and this idea of, hey, I don't want the sugar, but then I'm not so crazy about artificial sweeteners either. What can you do about that? If you got to flavor a drink, but people don't want sugar or artificial sweeteners, how do you start thinking about that differently?
This is the old, if you could have groceries that were purely organic, and they were the same price, everybody would say, yes, organic vegetables for me. But then when they realized that the strawberries they bought probably already have mold on them, and if not, are throwawayable in a day, all of a sudden what they put on the paper isn't necessarily what the real life is. So I do believe people wanted cleaner products. I see artificial colors as a big issue. When we first launched the C4 brand, we did have artificial colors in it because color does enhance flavor. But our consumers, being fitness minded, just said, why do you have the colors in there? And after our first run, we pulled the color right out. That's the advantage of being a privately owned company, is you can make moves like that real quick. And we did it by the second run because we listened to our consumer. But let's be real. When you zoom out, people want flavor, and flavor either comes at the cost of sugar or artificial sweeteners. So I just think it's one of those things that people say, but the reality is they would rather have that. Another thing that became really, really interesting, and you may remember this, I like to talk about beer because I like beer too, but there was a battle of the beers because we had this rise of IPAs, which were considered local. So it was kind of like farm to fresh food became popular before COVID. And then you just had IPAs just go crazy because the consumer believed that a local craft beer was healthier than the big brands, right? So then you started seeing one brand say water, hops, barley, and rice on the side of their box. They were trying to tell the consumer, hey, we're just as clean as all those other brands. And then seltzer came in and it was like, hey, no barley, no yeast, just water and alcohol. And they presented an even cleaner product, which is why you saw the quick onslaught, if you will, of White Claw and all these other seltzers. They just went crazy because they were even cleaner than the one before. So, if you look at the energy business now, there's such a proliferation of no sugar, which just comes with artificially sweetened. That's just the way it is. And when you try to sweeten a drink with stevia or monk fruit, it just, the consumer doesn't like it. Again, they'll say they don't want those sweeteners, but they're not buying the brands that are naturally sweetened without sugar.
Yeah.
And now you've seen even a category emerge called the energy seltzer, which is just carbonated water with caffeine in it and really no flavor, maybe an essence here and there, but it's 0 calories, 0 carbs, 0 sugar, 0 flavor. So, and they're doing okay. So,
Yeah.
I think we all want a world where everything we eat is organic and perfect and clean, but it's just not real when you start to put it on your palate.
Yeah, totally fair. Totally fair. So one of my favorite parts of our shows, we actually get to look at some real customer feedback. Again, we've pulled out the brand names here, but this to give some examples on the availability. You see people saying, hey, you may not be able to find this product at your local supermarket. We love this brand. Unfortunately, the grocery stores in our areas don't carry a certain flavor, so we go online. And this one, the third one says, can't buy this product anywhere in my local area. So clearly, this was, this, as you mentioned, was an issue for a lot of folks. On the chemicals and additives side, some of it is flavor-based. I didn't like the taste of the ginger ale. I was excited about all the good reviews, but I'm left again with no alternatives to the real thing that don't contain artificial sweeteners. And then what's worse is this one has a strong chemical sweetener aftertaste. My wife disliked it as well, which is probably the real reason why they didn't go back and buy it. But I think that, these are really, it's always interesting to me when you hear it from the customer's mouth, because we can extrapolate, we can interpret it, we can try to interpret the data. But when you actually hear it from the customer, and by the way, we don't edit these at all. That's why if you see typos or capitalization errors or something, that's because these are directly taken from reviews and we don't touch them at all. So anyway, I always think that's a fascinating part. And I always recommend to any company that you got to be talking directly to your customers, both in the form of soliciting reviews, but also don't be afraid to pick up the phone and talk to them or listen at your contact center if they're calling in, email, focus groups, anytime that you're in front of customers and you hear their actual voice and get their real feedback, it is absolutely priceless. All right, Hagen, we're going to move on. And now we're going to talk about the things that delight customers the most about energy drinks. Again, I have put 6 things here up on the board. They're in alphabetical order, so as not to drive you to any of them specifically. What are the 2 that you would jump to for things that people are happy about?
I'm going to go with energy boost and taste and flavor on this one.
Okay, tell me why.
I think they're consuming an energy drink because they want energy. And taste and flavor, kind of a joke we always say is people buy it once because of the color. They buy it twice because they were intrigued by how they felt. They weren't sure yet, but they're buying it 3 times because all 3 of those boxes checked and they like the flavor.
Yeah. Well, and it does seem like certainly that any consumable product, if it doesn't taste good, it's going to have trouble continuing to sell. So that one definitely jumped out to me as well. All right, let's go to the answers. Oh, go ahead.
My asterisk too there is price, because 20 to 22, a lot of people took price, pay cuts, right?
Yep.
So I think in this particular period of time, price might be up on that list. I got to keep remembering it's 20 to 2022.
All right. I love it. I love it. This, again, folks, this is why we bring the experts on. I looked at that list and I was like, I have no idea. But Hagen's an expert. He's been in this industry a long time. And sir, once again, you are right on. Taste and flavor is number 1 by far, actually. The rest of them were not even close. Price was second. But again, let's remind people, this is a positive, not a negative. So that means that the pricing appears to be fair or seems to be at a spot that customers are comfortable with. Sugar content, I'm guessing that the positivity there is around low sugar content, as you mentioned. Usage, and then the energy boost wasn't that high, which was kind of strange given that, the entire category refers to energy. But that one, maybe it's because my hypothesis there would be that's just the cost of entry, that the assumption is, of course, it's going to give me an energy boost because that's why I'm buying it. And so therefore it's not something that stands out to me. But tell me a little bit about when you see this in order, what are you thinking?
I taste and flavor is it, you don't keep buying products you don't like the taste of. And going back to the artificial ones, if you've ever had a house brand soda compared to the real thing, it just always has that weird taste. And you're like, it's the same formula, it's the same sugar, it looks the same, but the money you spend on flavoring makes a significant difference. We use natural flavors, though we do use artificial sweeteners. And there's also ways to balance the artificial sweeteners so that you don't have the strong aftertaste by, using different combinations, because some hit the front of your tongue, some hit the back of your tongue. It's like wine, and natural flavors don't give you the weird aftertaste where the synthetic flavoring does. So taste and flavor.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I'd also imagine that this is difficult in the sense that everybody tastes things a little bit differently, and something that tastes bitter to me I don't like IPAs because they're too bitter, but lots of people do, right? And they kind of embrace that bitterness. So you also have this kind of challenge of dealing with different palates. And then again, if we want to just point out 20 to 22, a lot of people lost their taste when they got COVID, and so that probably messed things up a little bit as well.
But I think you're seeing this whole emergence in energy and also in soda, right? Like soda continues to decline really, and interest keeps to be in line. And we've seen this rise in kombucha drinks. I love the brand Poppy. I think they're a great, brand. That's what I would give my kid. It's only 35 calories. If they wanted to consume a soda type product, they're 4 and 2. So right now I don't have to worry about it. But, you've seen this explosion even in the data, they have now separated traditional energy out from what we call performance energy. So these sugar-free brands that have functional benefits are considered performance energy. And then, the good old silver and red and blue can and the black and green one, that's traditional energy. But there's this growing segment right now, just like we saw with craft beers and seltzer and energy, where people are hanging up the old one, they're going to the low sugar one, or maybe they've been drinking sugar their whole life, and now they've gotten older and it's harder to control your weight, right? And they still want that energy boost. I can tell I'm an artificial sweetener guy, always have been. And if you give me like a regular soda at a restaurant, I can immediately tell because my palate's not used to the sugar. So
yeah, I gave up on diet soda about 5 years ago and moved over to seltzer. And now that's made it so if I do taste the artificial, it pops a lot more for me because I'm not used to drinking it. Yeah. But at the same time, when I was a Diet Coke aficionado multiple times a day, that exact same taste tasted really great. So certainly it's constantly moving. I'm glad you brought up taste though, because I have one last quiz for you. And that is that we looked at the top flavors of energy drink, and this is based on the volume of reviews. So we're sort of extrapolating here because those reviews could be positive or negative. So we're sort of extrapolating that the volume of reviews has something to do with sales. I think that's a fair extrapolation. But just on the top of your head, what do you think pops in terms of flavors?
During that time is flavors, just again, like going into beer, IPA became very, very creative. Now we have mango IPAs and mango wheats and pineapple. I drank a guava beer the other night. It was absolutely terrible, but I had to try it.
That doesn't even sound good, man.
It wasn't good. It wasn't good. It was buy one, get one free at Publix, and that's how they get you. So I tried it. It was terrible, like period. But I think the consumer is looking for these more creative flavors. So I'm not going to guess any particular flavor because the top brands don't even have any flavors. But I'll give an homage at Rainbow Unicorn, which was a flavor that was launched by one of our friend brands out there. And that it blew up. What is Rainbow Unicorn flavored? Nobody knew. But it was like we started entering the weird name era of energy drinks during this time. And, now today, look at you brought up seltzer, like Liquid Death, like that seltzer's killing it. And it's the weirdest name ever, right?
It is. It is.
So I'm going to go with weird names as a category. I can't give you exact flavors.
That's okay. I love it. And you know what? This was the one question where, if I'm being honest, we thought we might be able to pull one over on you and trick you. But you, of course, did not fall for it because of something that you said before you got to Rainbow Unicorn, which is also a great point. But you also mentioned that most of the top ones don't have flavors. And so the number one flavor is unflavored by far, which I thought was really interesting. And then the second one was multi-flavor, which is where I have to believe Rainbow Unicorn falls in. Is probably some undescribable multiple flavor. Then we get a little bit of strawberry, cherry, etc., mango, what have you. And as you go lower, orange and cola. But I'm going to guess, just looking at this chart now, that this doesn't surprise you at all.
No, I mean, frozen bombsicle is our number one flavor outside of, our Skittles and Starburst, which are also top performers. But, I don't, I don't know even if in 5 years or today, if like strawberry Starburst would come up on there, right? Because I don't know if people think they just buy the brand and then they kind of cherry pick flavors throughout the brand. And to your point earlier, like when I was 21, I drank Mai Tais and Red Deaths and other sweet drinks. And then I went through a wine phase, and now I'm just a beer guy. Don't really do spirits or anything. Your tastes change. Like our Orange C4 for me was very nostalgic to when I drank Diet Orange Sunkiss when I was a young kid. But my go-to every day is Starburst Cherry or Frozen Bombsicle. That's where my palate is currently, like you said earlier. So look, the flavors are evolving. And you're right that the top ones don't even have flavor names. There's a lot of jokes about them, but I think that data is absolutely spot on. I do think, though, that people would be more inclined to write a review on a weird Rainbow Unicorn Frozen Bombsicle style of a name, right? Because like everybody knows what the bull tastes like. Let's be real. We all know. So I think, the unique flavors for me as a consumer, I wouldn't make a comment on a flavor that's been in the market for 20 years, but I would make a comment on a frozen bombsicle or electric sour or something that had a really unique name.
Yeah. Quick question for you, because I was a little surprised at the unflavored thing. Again, this is not an industry that I'm hugely familiar with. Is there also an element of using them as mixers, maybe with alcohol or other things, and that's why you might want an unflavored one? Or is it just like, why does somebody want an unflavored drink? Or is that the seltzer trend that you were talking about?
No, I think unflavored it's not a specified flavor name. Like the category leader tastes like a night out on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, but that's not the name of the flavor. There is no flavor name, right, for that particular one. So I think it's just they're either unaware, because even the seltzers have flavors. The brands that have just entered the market that are energy seltzers, they still have flavor. So I think it was just either a non-named flavor or they didn't know the name of the flavor. Maybe they like the brand. I don't know that, but
gotcha.
People do want flavored energy drinks, and that is clear in the data with what is trending at today, today in 2022.
Yes, rainbow unicorns for everybody.
That's it.
All right, a couple other trends. We're coming up on time. I just want to cover a couple other trends, and just real quickly, Hagen, just tell me if any of this stands out. We definitely are seeing some increase in, I guess I would say, alternative benefits. Things like being caffeine-free or sugarless or gluten-free or organic, vegan, the number of diets out there, it's unbelievable. Is this coming up in your discussions at your brand as well, that there's a growing population of, I guess, alternative dieters or other, people looking for different aspects maybe than before?
Personally, right, I feel that this is more of the brands have started to try to differentiate themselves by putting these tags. Like energy drinks are all gluten-free, right? They're all going to be vegan basically. So, a lot of them are already sugar-free. So I think the consumer is noticing, they're reading the labels. They were sitting home during COVID and they actually cared to read the label. Plus they were buying it at a large format store. They weren't buying it at a convenience store and putting a cup holder, but the brand started to add these tags, though the product didn't have a lot of these things in it. They're they're adding the tag that made a person go, oh, cool, it's vegan. I never knew that. And then it started showing up. So you'll see a lot of brands, like we like to say, you sell more on the zeros than on the pluses. The consumer wants to see no sugar, no carbs, no calories, no animal products, so on and so forth. Then they go, oh yeah, this is clean. And like every zero you get is another checkbox of cleaner. Like we had somebody asked if our brand was kosher recently, right? Which is a very fair question. So, if I'm in Dubai, they want to know if it's porcine free. Like, so, but these things have started coming on as the consumer emerges more as, I want to be healthier. I want to be perceived as healthier. Most importantly, Dan, they just want to feel healthier. So if it's got that gluten-free tag, they're like, yeah, at least I'm avoiding gluten. And again, that's what you saw with the seltzer was, hey, we're going to stay away from barley and rice. You're just getting water and alcohol with some bubbles, right? So that whole cleaner feeling that the consumer gets is important. I always make the joke, my wife buys fried chicken at Whole Foods and pays twice as much as my local grocer. But, is it healthier? No, but it makes her feel good buying it. And that's what happens.
Yes, absolutely. Great. And then the last thing we looked at was we looked at some gender gaps. And what we found was that overall, in terms of reviews, again, that the industry skews male, which, of course, potentially provides an opportunity there. And then there were a couple of things. I actually thought it was pretty interesting that many of the aspects lined up, male and female. And just so you know how to read this, the green things are positive aspects of experience, the red are negative, and then you've got various shadings. The couple things that stood out, it looked like that women might be more, it might be more important. The sugar content might be more important to them. And then size was not something similar. Size seems to be more important for women than for men. But then the reverse was true with availability and caffeine, that those were big drivers for men. Availability was, of course, a negative, and then caffeine content was a positive. And caffeine didn't even show up on the female side, which I think was pretty interesting as well. So again, one of the things that I love about this data is that we can dig into different things and we can draw conclusions out of them, or we can build new product ideas or spark creativity based off of them. And to that end, we want to share with you the 3 main takeaways from the energy drink industry that we think can apply to all brands. The first, of course, is product availability. And we know that so many companies are dealing with supply chain issues. There's logistics problems, there's ingredient issues, there's distribution, all sorts of stuff. But this is a continuing concern. And one of the things I alluded to before that I think is really important: over-communicate with your customers and your customers' customers. People understand that this is a problem. They're seeing it across all industries. So, for a while it was just toilet paper, but it's now so many different things, from energy drinks to cars, that people kind of expect it, but they also don't want to be in the dark about it. So they want to know what's happening. When can I expect my favorite energy drink back on the shelf? If it's 2 months, great. I'm going to write that down on the calendar and check back in 2 months and not worry about it until then. The second piece is to never assume the obvious, but to look deeper into what customers want. Again, I think in the energy drink world, the obvious is that the energy buzz would have been one of the top factors, but it wasn't. It was much more about taste and flavor. And there were actually several items that came above energy boost. So don't assume anything without the data and without talking to customers. And finally, find innovation opportunities based on those trends. We saw that there were some differing trends on gender. We saw that there are different diet types. And I think Hagen made a great point. It sounds like even just changing your marketing language may make a big impact by saying that you're organic, even though you've already been organic or vegan or whatever it is, but not explicitly saying it might have, lost some customers. Whereas the people that are looking for a vegan alternative, now they see the word vegan, they're happy, it makes them want to buy the product. So I do think that focusing on these trends and figuring out how to innovate based on them is really smart. Hagen, last question for you. As you look at these takeaways, First of all, hopefully they resonate with you from the energy drink industry, but anything that you want to add on to that part of the discussion?
No, I just think, the consumer's constantly evolving. COVID, really gave rise to the White Claw era, if you will, of seltzers. And that also moved people from a 12 or 16 ounce big can, we call it, to that slim 12 ounce. I mean, that's what seltzers came out of the gate with. And there's other brands in the energy sector that were in the 12 ounce size for years, and nobody really bought it. They all wanted the big 16 ounce or like the giant black and green one, that's like 32 ounces. No way it's cold when you get to the bottom. And so the consumer, because of COVID, started going into seltzers to feel a little healthier. That changed their can. And now, Celsius is blowing up because they're in that 12 ounce can, and they were there at the right time. They've been around for 15 years, but really took off when the consumer behavior changed. We're actually following some of that data. Our Smart Energy brand, which is currently in 16 ounce, we are moving into the 12 ounce because we know the women like it, and we also know men like a 12 ounce. So we'll still have a 16 ounce offering, but we know we need a 12 ounce. You're also seeing the retailers start to separate 12 ounce away from 16. So these are really, really important trends. You definitely picked up on them. And, it'll be interesting to see. It's like, a long time ago, everybody was drinking big energy drinks, and then they all went to the little shot. It's on every counter in America, 5 Hour Energy, and everybody tried to come out with a shot. And then shots kind of died off, and 5 Hour Energy is just really the category leader. But you had the same proliferation, but the consumer wanted that bigger, colder drink, and they went back to it. So, let's see what the trend will be the next couple of years, and do this show again, Dan.
Exactly. It reminds me of the old Wayne Gretzky quote about how he had to skate where the puck was going to be, not where it is right now. I think that's true in business as well, because one thing that we can all count on is that customer expectations and customer tastes are going to change. Hagen, thank you so much for your time today. Great conversation. Such an expert in the field. I know you spent most of your life in this area and career, and really, really appreciate your input today. So thanks so much for being here.
Hey, this was a pleasure. Thank you. I feel good. I scored good on a test. I didn't know what was coming.
You did a great job. Thanks again.
Thanks.
So that was Hagen Panton. He is the Vice President of Global Sales Capability for Nutrabolt, the makers of C4 and other energy drinks. Thank you so much, Hagen, for being here. And thank you to our audience for being here for another episode of CXCY. I'm Dan Gingiss, the Experience Maker. It is a pleasure to host this show. We'd love your feedback as well. So please, wherever you're watching this, leave comments or feel free to send an email to me or my friends at 𝐂𝐻𝐢. We'd love to hear what you think about this show, and also if you have suggestions for future industries. Until then, I'm Dan Gingiss for 𝐂𝐻𝐢 and CXCY. We'll see you next time.